Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hamster's Happy Hang. Thank you for your patience. Finley, thank you for the sub tier 3. Holy gosh. Thank you, thank you. Welcome all. Alright, gotta get some paint on the old palette. Painting as we speak, that's what I like to hear. So last week, Chris and I tried out for the first time the game Moonstone. If you've heard of that. Super kind of whimsical miniatures. And the objectives represent the moonstones, and it's a handful of d4s that you drop from your hand in the middle of the table, and where they land is where moonstones have fallen, and the number on the die represents how deep into the earth the stone has fallen. So you need to take actions to, approach the moonstones, but then dig them up also, and then retreat off the board or end the game with them in a character's possession. Super fun, fantastic models. And the basically the magic and abilities. Painting some hobgoblins, heck yeah. Um, I have a whole army of cruel boys for Age of Sigmar Warhammer, and they're kind of resemble hobgoblins more than like orcs. And that's what made me want to play orcs. I was never really into the traditional Warhammer orcs, but those models got me into it. Um, so the abilities for Moonstone and the magic is like based on your arcane stat, you draw cards from a deck, the arcane deck, and then the defender always draws 6 cards. And the ability will give you a value and a color, all of which exist in the arcane deck, that you need to have drawn and play for the ability to work. But then what you do is you play it face down and you say, this is what the card is. And then as a defender, I decide you're bluffing. Or I say, okay. Or it's one or the other. So if I say okay, the effect goes off with the value that you said, even if that card is not that card for real. But if I call your bluff, then I choose a card in my hand to be the value of the effect. Hopefully, it's a catastrophe card, which is like the cards are numbered and colored, but then there's so many catastrophes, which is obviously a negative effect for the caster. So I can switch it out for a catastrophe or a low value. Um, And if I call bluff as a defender and they were telling the truth, they can cast the ability again for free. So it's a really fun, like, bluffing game. And then the melee, there's basically no dice except for like initiative at the beginning of the round. The melee is also cards, where we'll each draw a hand of cards, um, which are like melee maneuvers, like a piercing strike or a deflect or something. And then the result for each model depends on the opponent's play. So it's like if you played like a piercing strike and they did a low blow, The result, there's like a table of a chart of like each maneuver's result is different depending on what they've played. So it's like really dynamic. And obviously the models are great. That's what got us into it. But we played that for the first time, and I think they took some like social media B-roll. Maybe it'll be on a video or something. At least at least on socials. I also played just briefly a little a really small skirmish game called Great Helm. It's by Malev de Shinobi, uh, who's like a miniature painting streamer and game designer. He's done a lot of these things he calls micro games, which are like really small, like maybe 12 by 12 at most, like skirmish type games. And a lot of them have gotten pretty popular. So he did this one that's like the play space is the size of a sheet of printer paper. And they literally have like start with this, it's like a little battleground that is the size of a piece of printer paper, and you print it out and play on that. And it's 6 knights versus 6 knights brawling it out. But basically, how it works is like the action is a dice pool system, and the values on the dice determine the initiative, who goes first, being who has the most higher values, like sixes and fives. Um, but then each action type can only be used with certain values of dice. So it's kind of like managing your dice pool, because you can either do the action that that value gives you, or you can lower it to another value. And so each dice value is a different initiative step. So you have to do all of your sixes, which is like a dash. The ability that's available to you is like a 6-inch move. Um, but then if you don't want to do that, you lower it to the next value, and you can use it as the 5, which is a shorter move. But basically, the attacks, it's like all the movement stuff, and then kind of bashing and that kind of thing. And then attacks are twos and ones. So you can like notch down your dice as well. So you're kind of seeing the actions available to your opponent and to yourself, and you're managing the dice pool. And it's really cool. And then a lot of abilities like moving give you momentum tokens, which you can use to improve your dice rolls when you're finally rolling off for attacks and stuff. So it was really fun and dynamic, and I had it was like just a little intro scenario, but there was a lot of really surprising moments and a lot of tactical depth, even though it's a really tiny board. And I played with half the models. I played with 3 models per side instead of 6, just by myself. But that Kickstarter was fairly recent, and so I just have the playtest rules. They seem pretty tight. Maybe they'll get adjusted a little bit, but it's probably just mostly like formatting in the book and stuff that'll change for the most part. Draco and Unmatched. I haven't heard of that. Oh, Chris and I were also talking about Burrows and Badgers, which I actually played years ago now with Mace. And that's interesting where it's like your stats aren't numbers, they're like different polyhedral dice. So if you're stronger or better at a thing, you use a larger die. So like a little mouse versus a big badger is going to be rolling in combat like a D4 versus a D12 or something. Um, but the thing is, the D4 is more likely to crit, being the highest value on the die. And so a crit will always win. So it's like they're always going to do less damage, but they still have a fighting chance against a stronger enemy because they actually are more likely to crit. So that game was pretty fun too. We want to play that again at some point. Okay, what do we have here? A couple more of these like raider guys that I've painted quite a few of. I think I don't even know. This is like some weird caster guy. I think this is the same company that did all the skeletons that I painted on here, Die Hard minis. And I think this was even under the sci-fi section, but it's a very odd like it could be almost any genre, like sci-fi or fantasy, because it's just a weird floating caster guy. Maybe we'll try that. It's kind of cool. That's I bought this when I got some of the skeletons, and I was just like, that model just kind of speaks to me. I'll have to look into that. We're always looking for other little games. Yeah, I pretty much mix everything here, mostly because I don't have a lot of space here. Um, so for years now in Hobby Hang, I've just pretty much been mixing, and honestly, it's really taught me a lot, and it's entirely changed my workflow. Where if I'm just doing like single minis, especially, I just prefer to mix. I actually am faster with mixing as far as like getting all the value and contrast that you want and all the effects. But it definitely was a learning curve to figure out. Like basically, I would go on YouTube and like look at just traditional art videos or even like digital painting videos and just look at just like kind of not the boring stuff, but the really theoretical stuff of color mixing and how to place like shadows volumetrically and highlights and stuff. And I'm glad I did because it really taught me a lot. And just like not forcing myself, but just being here and having a limited amount of tools at home just kind of forced me to learn. Like I think like contrast paints and speed paints are cool, tools for certain scenarios, but I still think there's value to like the traditional layering. It's still my favorite way to paint just because you have so much control over everything. And that's really where the speed comes from is like I'm not opening a bunch of different paints that are specific colors that I'm imagining. I just mix them all. And even getting down to like which paints I have on my palette on my desk for mixing has changed just based on my preference and like studying other artists' palettes, not even miniature painters, just like what exists within a palette of different artists. Um, so it's been a really cool journey. I mean, I've been doing this stream for like, over 4 years. So that's kind of how that started. Before that, I was definitely just like buying all kinds of different paints and stuff. And obviously, nothing wrong with that, especially for like army painting or if you want a really specific thing or you have a favorite. Um, there's huge value in just having a large collection. But I think for me, at least, and like my thought process of like imagination to result, I prefer to have a limited number of tools on the desk and just learn how to use them really well. So I'm not spending time like going through my drawers. I'm just like on the palette right away, and I feel comfortable doing that. I do have another webcam that I thought I've mentioned this a bunch of times now. Um, just trying to maybe get a palette cam going, but I'm not sure if that'll happen this year or not. I gotta move in the spring, so is this guy like a skeleton? He has bony feet, but he's wearing a mask, so he's self-conscious about being a skeleton. It's kind of interesting. Oh, there's kind of a sculpted magical effect on the legs where he's floating too. That's cool. It's gonna be a lot of glowy stuff on here, so I kind of want to get the general colors finished pretty quickly because at a certain point, it's like mostly comes down to the effect, right? It's like doing the most work, so I don't even need to like overpaint the other stuff for a gaming model because the glow effects will be so flashy. He has ears though. Maybe that's on the mask. It's kind of a broken mask. Well, we can paint it with whatever we want. So for an army, I do a little more like pulling colors from my collection, like my Stormcast. Uh, just for speed, it's just like a classic slap chop. Like it's a red base with white dry brush because there's going to be kind of a golden yellow orange, and then I spray it with like an ink over that, a yellow ink. So that comes down to what's best for to making that scheme the quickest. But it's still about limiting the number of colors that I have to pull out because that's really what to me slows down the process. It's like, okay, for this step I got to pull out new paints and I have to like put them on the palette. Um, but I also have like for my armies now, I do a really bare bones paint where it's pretty flashy, especially for the Stormcast, but there's not a lot of details actually painted at all. It's kind of just like the three color minimum spirit, but really high contrast and like flash. I have the case here. Let me pull it out. So even down to the basing, I have like a cloud basing thing. It was like, what is the flashiest thing that I can do quickly? So this is one of the prosecutors. You can see like on the armor, it's like really bright, but it's not detailed at all. And one thing that was interesting is I started with the white dry brush and then the ink. That's this one. And then I did like a dry brush zenithal, and I actually didn't like it as much because there's less definition. So I didn't repaint them, but I started doing them with like just a dry brush, and I only used airbrush for the yellow and orange on the armor. But they still look fine on the table together, even though there's a little slight difference. Um, but yeah, you can see like the weapons like are kind of flashy. There's like a quick sort of non-metallic effect, but like all the little bits and bobs on the armor is like not separated at all. There's just a kind of a three color separation going on. This is just a little foot priest. This is probably one of the models that I think like the slap trap dry brush plus the airbrush I got like the variation on the armor like the best, how I imagine. And part of that may just be the sculpt too, but and then this guy's just cool. That's a model I recently painted. So, in the future, maybe I could pick out the purple stuff a little more detailed, but it's mostly just like value contrast, high saturation on like a specific color or two, um, and then just what makes it the quickest. Because these guys, this one included, I had to paint for a tournament, so I just don't want to be stressed when I want to add a new option, If I want to go hardcore on painting, I have a bunch of models I could do that on, but for the gaming stuff, for myself, I just have to feel like I can paint a thing in an hour or two, like this guy. Um, just because growing up, I was always like, uh, I want a Warhammer army, and I also want every model I ever paint to be the best model ever. And turns out I didn't finish an army back then. How many pieces in that set? Like that I have painted in this? Well, a standard Warhammer army is 2,000 points, and that's probably like 50 to 60 models. Maybe more for Stormcast, maybe more like 40 at most. Um, and I probably have like 4,000 points. I probably have under 100 Stormcast painted, but maybe like 80 plus. Um, but how this scheme started was the launch box for fourth edition had Stormcast, and it was launching the week of Gen Con, I think it was. And Nate came to me, he said, "Hey, I ordered that box. Would it be crazy if we got it painted before Gen Con?" And it was like a week before. And I was like, "That is crazy, but I'm gonna try to do it." So Chris painted a Skaven, and I had to come up with something that was like, cool, that would like catch your eye from across the table when it's on Dwarven Forge, and also was finished in a week, built and painted. So that's how I came up with this. And I had a bunch of Stormcast anyway from like random starter boxes I had bought. So I was like, I just accidentally have an army. I should paint this. And I've been playing it for like over a year now because I was playing the Cruel Boys Orcs, but these have been a lot of fun. It's a more elite army, like low model count. And then also too, it's like I take these models on the train in the magnet case. In New York, it's like the shop is really tight for space. Like I've had so many models kind of get knocked off the table and broken. So it's a scheme too where like I don't really have any hard feelings if something breaks or falls over, it gets rattled around because I made it an efficient process. That I don't feel like I invested. I'm not like losing hours by having a weapon break, which is healthy for someone who like plays regularly, I think, like myself. Um, Seeing the glowy elements on this guy, this got released on video. I painted this for Hero Forge last month. And this is another great example. It's like I just did like grayish and black wings, and then the like cool part of the model is obviously mostly the effect. So this took me like 20 minutes because it was just kind of like get any paint to define like the rest of the model and then do this really, really flashy thing. And that's the majority of the painting is like one element. But it's one of the coolest ones in the pack. Um, so yeah, it's just like prioritizing. Same with the Stormcast armor. It's just like prioritizing your efforts in a scheme if you're going for speed. This one is not airbrush. This one was painted at this desk with the same palettes, like my same paints that I do hobby hang with. A lot of times for something like really small, like all your small traditional 25s, it's like, I just don't get enough precision with the airbrush. I actually don't even typically use it for stuff that size because it doesn't end up being faster when I just have more control with like picking away with the brush. And that's all personal preference. There's no right way to do it, but this is just a workflow that I've developed over many years. That works for me. The best thing you can do is get familiar with the tools that you have in your collection. Don't be like me and buy paints by the set. Just get really familiar with what you have, try different stuff, and put aside what you don't like and keep what you do until you get a really sort of uh, curated selection of tools that you can keep on your desk at all times. And that it depends on the project. Like I said, if you're doing an army, you gotta the best thing is to, you know, come up with which tools do that scheme idea the best. But for just okay, randomly sit down and paint a mini, this is what I've developed for myself. Is a select number of like minimum maybe 6 colors, maximum 12, and then I don't need to use anything else. But I have switched them out. I've had to look up like, okay, how should I maybe be mixing for this color if I'm, with these different paints. So again, there's no right or wrong. Yeah, no, I mean, same for me. I was like, oh wow, a revelation. I think I can get away with mostly just these paints, and I own hundreds already. So I'm with you. Sometimes I give them away to people in the office. I'm like, hey, paint's up for grabs, or I give them to friends because I just have so many, more than I know what to do with. And sometimes I would just kind of run into like decision paralysis with that many paints. So it's nice to just be able to at least start something. Like I can always, if I really want to, I can go and pull something out if I'm like hankering for a certain color. But the best thing for me is to just start painting. Well, that's not true. I can't really just start putting paint to model. I kind of like to have a some visualization of what it's going to look like, but then I can be kind of spontaneous from there and switch it up. But the thing is, right, is like the secret to my style and the speed is like each surface kind of has like six colors on it, or at least values of that color. And if you're going like from paint pot to paint pot to do that, like it's not gonna be fast, you know. So I definitely think it was worth experimenting with mixing, even though it was honestly frustrating at first, with the learning curve. But I think it helps too because like minis are expensive, right? So we all want them to like look as good as possible. So it's also nice. It was nice for me to like dedicate some to practice just mentally. Be like, hey, these are practice minis. They may not be my best, but I'm deciding to like dedicate them to my learning and kind of taking the pressure off yourself. Because I would also feel that of like, oh, I don't want to experiment on this because I want it to be good, but then it's hard to improve. Yeah, and well, first of all, using reference is incredible, and all artists do it, not even just mini painters. And I have saved, posts of mini painters and stuff. I did enjoy when I sort of made a decision for myself to like not use painted miniatures for reference, just as a challenge, not because it's bad, but just like, okay, what if you just are referencing a photograph or even a different piece of art, and just so there's more interpretation, which subliminally like teaches me more. But again, every hobbyist has like their own hobby, so everyone's version of the hobby is specific to them. So whatever keeps you painting, looking for inspiration, I mean, take it where I can get it. So however people are getting inspired, I am down. And for some people who just want to do a specific thing, going on YouTube, finding that perfect video, like do it, right? Right? Why not? We're all just trying to get minis painted and have fun. I might need to work on the. Sorry, I haven't like fiddled with the focus here in a while. This is upside down for me too, so bear with me. All right. Oh, sure, sure, sure. Yeah, I mean that is what's nice is the internet has so many different ways to get inspiration and reference. Here I will grab a little fluorescent, which does help with the glow effect, just saturation in general. Oh, that's interesting. I've never really used ChatGPT honestly for anything, so I'm unfamiliar with it. But it like gave you a like a text result or like a photograph result. Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's pretty fast, right? Once you kind of know the idea, it's like nothing is brighter than the source, and it kind of blooms out, and how would light hit? The real glow will come from these spell effects down here, so that'll be fun. I'm kind of just trying to like basically finish everything else so I can focus on that. Maybe since we have the red down here, I'll put it in the eyes. That's kind of scary. The nose dot was a mistake, but maybe it's kind of a cool reflection. Oh, that's cool. It's a cool strategy. I wasn't planning on doing a black mask, but then I painted the eyes first, and I kind of like it. It's kind of menacing. I just don't know if it like reads super well, but he's kind of like facing downward anyway. And actually, you know what? There's gonna be glow from this magic too, so I'll just do that. In fact, I'll probably do even the base next first before that magic, because that will get some glow too. I promise I'm not taking over your machine. I have not hacked the mainframe. Death by cat attack. Oh no. Yeah, I had a laptop from college that I used way too long afterward, and it would basically blue screen like 80% of the time, but then miraculously come back for like one session and then do it all over again. Just want the separation of the mask to be clearer here. Kind of just futzing around because I need the base to dry a little more. Yeah, I've had this desktop for like 8 years and I haven't changed anything about it. It still does everything I need it to do, which is not a lot, so I really don't want to be spending money on a computer either. Oh man, well, I hope everything's okay with your pet. Thanksgiving will be the anniversary of our dog getting attacked. So our plan is to not leave the house and just give her a bunch of lovings all day. Oh dear, yeah, that'll rack up fast. I'm glad he's doing better. See, I'm covering so much of this stuff up. That's why I didn't really want to go too hard on the effort until we started kind of doing this effect. Oh, little pet buggy. Yeah, we got Dolly a stroller after the attack. She thankfully recovered her use of her legs. She was bit up all over her back legs, but she can walk now. But we got her a stroller anyway. Trying to decide if the source is probably the skull itself versus like the hand. It's maybe more interesting. I should have tipped this model like up more. Maybe I glued it kind of crooked. It's looking a little funky. I'll add some magical source back here then for that. Okay. Fluorescent green. Oh, it's never been used. Look at that. laying right next to me on the sofa. Awesome. I think Dolly's in her cave under the bed right now. Sometimes she needs alone time. All right. I think this might be at least one of the first minis I've done with like multiple glows going on, so that's kind of fun. I suppose where the glows would meet, there'd be kind of some interaction going on. I think it'd honestly be kind of dark. I normally put them in the Dwarven Forge Discord, and like share your minis, I think, or maybe Artist Alley. All right. Been trying not to paint the mini with black on the palette, just as a challenge. I use like the dark purple or the dark brown or a mix to try to get a dark value, but I still like it for base rims, the black. Some parts of the effect I could maybe clean up, but for table view, oops, other way, definitely looks striking. Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. I've probably had this mini for like 4 years, assembled probably for a couple more, or a couple of those years. It's finally ready for the table. I remember when we used to not finish minis on the stream. Yeah. Well, I've been getting better at painting right off the bat instead of talking for like 45 minutes only. But I do honestly feel like my workflow has improved to the point of, I kind of got over the next plateau of like speed and workflow with the hobby hang setup here. Could maybe do the coat a little more, but again, it's like there's such a flashy effect going on, I'm not even gonna worry about it. If you're looking at the coat, then I did something wrong. It's my fault for not talking about food. Yeah, we didn't have any Arby's conversations. All right, I took a few photos. I'm gonna put them in share your minis. You guys getting the Taco Bell Baja Blast pie for Thanksgiving? I did not know this was a thing, but I do need know that I need it in my body. Okay. That's something I'm gonna need to consume. I gotta at least try it, right? They started putting Baja Blast at the deli right on the corner. Oh man, that's dangerous. Yeah, it'll probably just be that fake sweet, but like, isn't that what you're looking for when you're doing Baja Blast? Ooh. Yes, I shall destroy my body for the good of all and post a social media review. Uh, oh, paired with a bourbon? Baja Blast, what? Honestly, it's probably good. I was first imagining like a whitish, like phantom type mask, right? Like Phantom of the Opera or something. But that thing would just be all reflected glow, probably. It'd just be basically a green mask. So probably better I did it dark. Let's see, is PAX next week? I think it is. Thank you. Yeah, this is a fun one. I always love glow. I still have my Mothman here I did for Hero Forge. This is all glow. I mean, look at this. It's like a couple gray dry brushes and then just glow. And it turned out to be the coolest one. Next weekend, okay. So that means I don't think there'll be on the anvil, but I'm around. I'm not going to pack, so we should be able to have a hobby hang on Thursday. Yeah, that's my favorite one of the pack. Let's see if I can reach the rest of them. It's a little Bigfoot. It's pretty cool. Chupacabra. Oh, the glowy Mothman? Sure. Uh, this cutie pie, a little jackalope. I don't know how I got these eyes, but it happened. I just kind of didn't ask questions and put the brush in God's hands, you know. By that I mean my hands, and prayed. Huh. And then this is some cryptid that like originated in Wisconsin. I forget what it's called, but here it is. Yeah, Jack Link's Bigfoot. Yeah, this is the jerky guy. Hand looks kind of nice. Some weirdness going on, but these are also fun too because the bases are just they don't have any details like printed on the base, so they're all just like painted 2D kind of. But I think it's kind of a fun effect. Hodeg, yeah, yeah, that's what this is. That's what this is called. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot the name. This little 2D kind of drawn on base. Kind of looks like a big green mess up close, but let's zoom out. Cool. Well, I will let me get this Mothman in the Discord as well. Okay, share your minis is that one. I should note when you're looking at it, there's something I would go back and change probably. Um, like when I did the base last, and I thought it'd be cool if like some of the red was reflecting on there. So I put some on the foot, and I don't think that should be the case, just because I didn't let the glow get further. Like the distance from the source to the feet is longer than like the distance from the source to the wings. So it kind of is like breaking its own rules, you know, for like the strength of the glow. So I would just stop it here at the knee. Like that's where I originally did it, and then I added this, and I probably would go back and not do that. So just look at it here and ignore that, I'd say, if you're looking at the photo for like reference. But yeah, if you're trying to practice OSL, it's basically just make nothing brighter than the source and just hit edges that are near and make them the next brightest. and then just gradually like try to think about where it would hit and start like fairly dark. Like there's a really dark red in here, you know? But it still is kind of how light would act in these deep winged parts. Like it would still catch red, but it would be dark. But basically, the biggest pitfall I fell into at first was like just don't make anything brighter than the source of the light. It has to be the brightest, um, for it to read correctly. And then don't be afraid to be dark because, you know, having dark nearby the light, like in these wing pockets, makes the bright look even brighter, just from comparison when you're looking at it. Oh, this is the Brooklyn Cyclones, which is the minor leagues of the New York Mets. We're based in New York City, so I like watching the Mets. And the Cyclones Stadium is on Coney Island. So behind the park when you're watching the game is like the roller coasters in the amusement park. So as the lights go down, the sun goes down, the lights in the park go on. Um, and it's really cool. Yeah, it does kind of look like Boston, but there's like a C in there. Yeah, this mini's awesome. It's part of their cryptid pack for October. All this is the whole pack from Hero Forge, those five I showed you. But this pose is just cool too. I love the way it was so fun to paint, like the hand, the finger, like catching extra glow from the angle. No Jersey Devil, that'd be funny. It's just a hockey player. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you everyone for hanging out with me. This was a fun one. I'm glad this is finally painted. I don't know what I'm gonna use it for, but we'll find something for it. All right, so PAX next week. So thank you. Yeah, the mask looks cool. No on the anvil next week is PAX, but I'm not going to PAX, so I will see you Thursday, and if not, I will post announcements on Discord if that changes. But otherwise, have a great night, and thank you for watching. Need to run a Scooby Doo? Yeah, take the mask off. I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for your meddling kids. All right, good night, y'all. Bye.